We have 12 o'clock. Welcome to everyone in the room and everyone on Zoom. I'll call the meeting, the Board of Directors of the Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority to order. I believe we have a quorum. All right. Can we get a roll call?
Will Brennan, Mr. Burgess,
Present.
Ms. Gleaton, Ms. Herbert,
Here.
Mr. Howard, Mr. Lawson, Ms. Mood, here, Dr. Morris,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Mr. Racio,
Here.
Overture Walker, Stephen Kane, Michael Green, Mr. Jenkins,
I'm here.
Al Kuhn, Geraldine Robinson, Debbie Summers, Mr. Unthank, and Barry Walker. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
I move adoption of the agenda is distributed.
Thank you. There's a second for that? I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, will you call the roll for the agenda?
Mr. Brennan, Vice Chair Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton, Mr. Howard, Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
well, I'm sorry, Mr. Lawson, Ms. Mood, here, Dr. Morris, Mr. Smith,
Here.
Yes.
and Mr. Racio.
Here, or yes, sorry. Okay, so item 3 is the Midlands Transit Riders Association update. I see Mr. Durst on the phone. Do you want to give an update?
Yeah, I just have a couple of things. First of all, I'm very glad that the trash pickup is working at the bus stops. They are picking up on Sunday and they seem to be doing a good job. Did notice that a couple of cars going by were honking the horns at them like they were in the way, but they really weren't. But anyway, that's pretty good. The other thing, from a personal note, last night I was at the James Taylor concert and taking the bus 801 into town, easy transfer to 61 to get to College Street and a short walk down the hill to the CLA. It's just it's an easy way to get to the CLA. So I urge everybody, if you're going to take an event there, use the bus. That's all I got. Thanks.
I like hearing about the specific routes, and maybe we can highlight some of that too sometimes. Okay, so the number 4 is the call to the public. 4A is, for everyone who wanted to sign up, they could have done that at info@thecomet.sc.gov or here in the room. Are there any individuals who would like to address the board?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Mr. Roscoe Wilson.
Oh, thank you. Y'all doing all right there?
Why don't you do this, Mr. Wilson? Why don't you just stand here so the board members can see you? And you face the screen.
Yeah, and then everybody on Zoom can see.
Okay.
Come on in a little bit more.
Like in the middle of.
There you go, so they can see, there you go, they can see.
All right, my name is Roscoe Wilson. I am the CEO of the RC Wilson Group. 3 things I just want to talk to you about. One of the things I've been talking with Director Huggins about moving forward 2030 plan. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about your fleet of transportations you have and looking into. I know you use biofuel. I don't know if you do biodiesel in the whole fleet. But we're talking about probably implementing biofuel for the entire fleet. And then also looking at researching alternative fuel, non-fossil fuel for the future. I think it's important we're getting to that point right now. Obviously, you look at the world, what fuel costs, other thing is fertilizer. It's another aspect of what we spend money on. 60% of the fertilizer we use here comes out of China, out of Russia. The other part comes out of China, and that's fuel also. So I want to talk to them about looking at us being able to generate our own fuel, generate our own source of power, even electrical power. So that's basically what I want to talk to you about and tell you about. We are a minority enterprise. Thank you, Dr. Prince, for helping me with feedback on how to navigate that process. Very, very, very good. Thank you so much. But that's something I've been working on, looking at. I have my partner here. He's from Stockholm. We go way back. He and I. I'm gonna tell my age. When I first met him, he was 10 years old. That was in 1976. So that kind of gives you an idea. I guess it may not be known that I played professional basketball in Europe for over 10 years. His father was my teammate, so he just sort of carried. He kept us around him. Didn't know that he was turned out to be a genius, microbiologist. So he and I've been talking about obviously air purification. We talked about biofuel, biomass, using it to generate cities and generate other aspects of our lives. And so I look forward to moving forward with this, talking with you and getting more information. Any information you need from me, I'll make sure to leave my information for you, for both of us. And hopefully we can talk about moving some things forward in the next level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your time.
Leon Howard.
Joined the meeting.
It's a personal indulgence. I don't know if y'all know it or not, but Mr. Wilson is the father of Miss Asia Wilson, the University of South Carolina basketball team, women's championship 2017. But he's right on point. We are looking at, along with Ms. Mood and the service committee, just looking at all different types of fuel. And hopefully, 2030, we would have an announcement. We will announce an initiative real soon to have a much more diversified fleet by the time 2030 comes around. So thank you, Mr. Wilson, for coming over.
Thank you. That brings us to item 5, our consent calendar. Under item 5 are the approval of the May 25th, June 8th, meeting minutes, and the approval of the invoice payment selection listing ending June 30th, 2022. And the draft payables of, yes, of 7/1/22. Those can be found in pages 3 through 17 of our packet today. Is there a motion regarding the consent calendar?
Move approval of this.
Second.
Second, it's been moved and properly seconded for approval of the consent calendar. Any discussion regarding that? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Will you call the roll for the consent calendar?
Sure. Mr. Brennan. Vice Chair Burgess. Ms. Gleason. Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Ms. Herbert.
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Morris. Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Gracia.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to item 6, our discussion and action items. 6A is our on-time performance update. Who would like to present that?
Yes, I'll present that. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, Executive Director Huggins. We are 46 days into our launch of our on-time performance project. And we find ourselves, hovering around 70%. We did notice since the initial launch on May 8th, a little bit of a lull the first week in June, but what we've seen since is a tick back upwards towards our launch. So very glad to see that. We do have standing meetings with Mr. Hubble in the comment as we constantly look to analyze data and kind of work through a variety of issues. And so that will continue until the foreseeable future. In addition to you're talking about on-time performance, a couple of quick notes. During the service committee, initially reported 0 COVID cases. Since that time, we've had 2. Those individuals are fine. So we obviously, we definitely want to make sure we're keeping an eye on that. And something else we've seen on a positive note to close out is we have seen last month a decrease in our reliability complaints, which is positive. We'll constantly watch that trend to see more specifics as we get more data. Also, a slight decrease in our safety complaints as well. That's always positive. We had a reduction of preventable accidents last month. So the remainder of the information is on my report, pages 18 through 54. And that's it for me today.
Great. Thank you for that update. 6B.
Madam
Yes, is
Madam
there a
Chair,
question? Is there
Madam
a
Chair,
question?
Robert
Yes.
Morris. Mr. LaChamp, we improved quite a bit in terms of performance, on-time performance last month. Do you have a record of how much we improved over the past month?
With this, before, when we initially kicked off the project back on May 8th, before then, we were basically averaging high 30s, 40% on-time performance. And once
Yes.
we kicked off the new project on May 8th, we've been trending right around 70%. Our ultimate goal, and according to the contract, is targeted at 85%. So as we go through all the different issues that we're getting feedback from the operators and all, we're continually working week to week through our meetings to try to obtain that goal.
Okay, I noticed that we were at 70% in May, and I just wonder whether or not we improved any since then. It's a month later now. But anyway, you're still working on that.
Yes, this is going to be a constant thing for us because as we got into this project and even when we kicked it off, we talked about we've got to go through a cultural change, a cultural shift. And that's working with our operators. We have to retrain them on certain things that are out there with the systems that we are working on. We've got to make sure that they're giving us correct data. We're constantly monitoring it day by day. And when I said they, led by Lenny, they have a control center downstairs where they are monitoring our routes and what's going on daily. And each week we learn new things and we try to make adjustments as much as we can. So we know we have still a big challenge ahead of us, but our ultimate goal is to provide the best on-time, safe service out there for our ridership.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. That'll bring us to item 6B, the Lucius and River update. Mr. Harris?
Yes, I just switched devices. I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yes, are you ready for the Lucius and River Road update?
Yes, absolutely. So as of right now, the project is still moving forward. We are in a good position, and we suspect that the project will be complete between September, October. Like to give it a little leeway there. As you know, the traffic signals are there. They're just waiting for the go-ahead from Cummins staff to approve, well, confirm what the start date would be to make those traffic signals active. From the feedback that I've received from our drivers, they're excited about that. Just with the current system, they just feel like sometimes it's difficult to turn out into that Lucius Road, well, River Drive more so. And so we want to make sure that we mitigate that as best we can. But overall, the project is still going well. We just want to, well, as from the latest report, we had some hiccups with the soil. So we just got to make sure we get some engineering soil in place. That way the project can keep moving forward.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Eric, you spoke to the thing that I had a question about, and that's the traffic signals. And what I'm hoping is that we're not waiting to activate those until the super stop is completed, because as you pointed out, I mean, getting in and out of this place is hard enough and risky enough right now. And I would expect even more so when the buses are all heading out in the morning. And so I think as quickly as we can get those activated, the better off we'll be.
We will make that request and be forthcoming with that information.
All right, thank you. Let's move.
That'll bring us to item 6C, the Reflex Express route discussion. Who would like to take that one?
I guess I'll start. All right. We'll do a relay race with this. Okay, so this discussion took place in the service committee meeting with Ms. Moon. I apologize because I had another engagement, so I kind of missed the discussion. But the gist of it all was to discuss a pilot route which ran to Batesburg, Leesville, how to reorganize the Reflex for better use with DART and some express route. I think Ms. Lil and Eric was supposed to go down and talk to Stephen Kane about the Batesburg route, since it was a pilot route and where I thought underperforming and it's costing us versus benefiting us. So that's my spill on it, and now I will let Mr. Franklin and Ms. Moon take over to give you guys a better insight of what took place.
We go from here. Well. Or maybe, well, I'll say something up front, then you might need to give them some details. So the service committee did discuss both of these items, and I want to take them one at a time if we can. The question about the Reflex route. The issue is that we've got a really complicated system for people who would qualify for DART service in other areas where we are trying to meet that need with them catching the flex route. And that's where you want to hear the details of what that's like. Mr. Franklin can fill you in on that. But the bottom line was the question of whether the Reflex route is actually a part of our fixed route system, in which case we could allow DART service for people who live on the Reflex route in the same way that we do the DART service to people on the other fixed routes. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding at the service committee meeting was that the FTA regards Reflex routes as fixed routes. And so given that information and the kind of hardship that's falling on the people trying to ride it now, the motion from the service committee was for the board to approve, the recommendation to the board is to approve providing DART service on our Reflex routes with the same rules that we apply to other fixed routes. Did I get all that straight? Do you all want to hear how hard it is for the people right now? Go ahead.
And I guess I want to say, for those who don't know, the DART rules that you're referring to, that would be in line with Reflex and for me too. So can you just?
Oh, yes. So the DART rules would be that we would be providing service to people who board the bus within 3/4 of a mile of the fixed route, which would now include the Reflex route during the hours that service is available.
Thank you.
So that would be from the service committee would be a motion to approve that change.
Okay. So we've heard a motion from the service committee. Since it's a recommendation from the committee, it doesn't require a second. Any discussion on this item from the full board?
I think it does require a second, and I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if Rosalind wants to speak to what may be an unasked question at this point is, and that would be, what is their fiscal impact of this?
So my concern was Route 97.
Well, I'm okay with that.
So the fiscal impact for the others, I would defer to Dennis.
Thank you. Right now, there really isn't a lot of fiscal impact at all. The current reflex routes, as you guys know, they were designed with a fixed pattern with fixed time points. So that makes it a fixed route, and it is allowed to deviate off of the route up to 3/4 of a mile as it is right now. According to the National Rural Transit Association program, if we allow deviations for everybody on that route, now we must comply with the complementary ADA rules and regulations. With that being said, the previous, executive director had us not allowing DART to go into any of the reflex areas. So passengers that we have now, we have several dialysis passengers now that have to get up around 6 o'clock in the morning to catch the first bus around 7 o'clock to get to Garner's Ferry to meet the DART vehicle, and that DART vehicle drops them off about 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning at dialysis. Their chair time is not till 9:45. By the time they're done with the dialysis treatment, they're done around between 1 and 2. But the next bus route that will actually pick them up at Garner's Ferry is around 3:45. So they don't get there until 6 o'clock at night. So now we're putting, a 4-hour dialysis patient that we normally do within our normal DART, which is about 30 minutes prior, 30 minutes after. We're now extending them all the way out to another 4 or 5 hours. And we're also charging them extra for the deviation, because the deviation is $2 per deviation. Since the requirements, and we met with, RITB and I met with the comment to go over, we met with Dr. Prince and everything to make sure that we were within FTA compliance. We reached out to FTA, we are in compliance with what we want to do, which is allow us DART to go pick these passengers up, get them directly where they need to go. What we're seeing, impact wise, it's around 7 to 9 people every day that we're transporting there. So it's not a huge financial impact to the common, because we're already servicing those timeframes anyways. We're just extending out to those areas to better suit our passengers. Based on, when we do NTD reporting, we report the reflex routes as a deviated fixed route. So that is, once we go to the deviated fixed route aspect of it, and the complementary ADA says that we operate paratransit in those areas within 3/4 of a mile at the same allowable time as the fixed route. And that's what we want to do, is get away from the restrictions that we have, forcing them to take 2, 3, 4 buses to go get them and bring them back. I hope that explained it.
And I would just say that, I understand the motivation for the system that we had, because all of us know that if we can make it possible for people to get where they need to go on a fixed route bus, that is a huge difference in cost to the common. And so we want to have that potential there all the time. And so I think this was an effort to say, can we meet the needs of those people with the flex route, rather than requiring a DART service for each one. So I think the intent was good, but I think when you start trying to implement it and people begin to live it in their life experience, then it shows up things that sometimes we don't anticipate on paper. So anyway, that's how we got to where we are.
Did you want to speak to 97?
No, I won't. I'd like us to take action on this one if we could,
Okay,
and then we'll
so
talk about, that's a whole separate issue.
Great. So we will, address the, I guess the motion regarding reflex routes. Seeing no further hands up, I'll ask for, oh, wait,
Ms.
sorry,
Lawson.
Mr. Lawson.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So I just had a quick question. I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around what I'm hearing. I'm hearing individuals say that there's not a whole lot of financial impact. However, I would like to hear the exact numbers. Do we have those by chance, Dr. Prince? Or Roz?
It's in the packet.
Well, for the 97, so the fact, the actual, the way everything is billed is by the service hour, which is the first pickup to the last drop off. You're still, the way the reflex is being run with the passenger, there is no extra time added because it actually be less because the passenger isn't on board. We're not running that. They're not having to capture that time frame for the 47 or the 31, those reflex routes. That time they can continue going on loop. What it'll actually do is eliminate those deviations off those routes, which actually cause more time added to that loop, which actually will cause more financial impact towards the Comet because we have to extend that route due to the deviations. With us not being able to have to do all those deviations, we'll be able to stay on pattern, on time throughout the loop. And then the start end time will always be the same and will never go above and beyond what the current pattern is stated. So it will be most likely cheaper on that end. So we're not actually extending, like the 31, I believe, ends around, it's supposed to end around 7:30, but most of the time we're running it up to about 7:50 p.m. So that's an additional 20 minutes per day that we're actually, be giving back to you guys almost.
So if I'm understanding, Mr. Franks, may I? That we may save some on the fixed route itself. Mr. Lawson, what we can't, I don't think would be possible to give you exact figures on this because the cost of providing DART services to those people who are now trying to make the flex route work for them would just depend on how many people we have. And I'm hearing you say right now, that's like about 8 people. But so it's not we're not talking about a huge number of people, but it'd be hard to send that down to an exact amount just because it would vary with the riders.
Got it. So just to make, I guess, to give more clarity to what I'm looking at. So I hear what everybody's saying. However, it can be quantified, right? Like what I'm hearing the gentleman say when he's speaking is like, hey, you're going to gain 20 minutes. That 20 minutes can be quantified into data and numbers that tell us, hey, this is how much money you're going to save on fuel per week or per month. And we just heard Mr. Wilson speaking earlier in the initiative of, hey, this is the direction that we need to be trying to go, i.e. to save fuel, which result in money. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that. If we gain 20 minutes a day, right, that can be quantified into a number to tell us how much fuel we can save or how much extra fuel we're going to spend per week. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just jump in and say, even if it is just 8 or so people, I bet this will be life altering for those people
Yes.
that we get to change the way that they get to their appointments. Okay, are we ready to vote on this item? Okay, let's take a vote.
Okay, Mr. Brennan, Vice Chair Fergus,
Yes.
Scleaton, Representative Howard, Ms. Herbert,
Yeah.
Mr. Lawson,
Abstain.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Macio.
Yes. Great. So that will bring us to the other item on 6C, which I guess, is that right? Yes. We will talk about the recommendation to discontinue operation of Route 97.
So Raj, you want to start us with what prompted that request?
So yes, what prompted that request, as with most of our routes, doing a route analysis and seeing that the ridership is low. I think if it's not written in here, just to give you the ridership that was there, I think under 20 in the time that it's run, and that was a group of people doing a travel training. So at this point, if you're looking at page 56 of your package, it's written there how much it's costing us a day to run that route. It started as a pilot, to which, you know, it's run for a year. Unfortunately, COVID hit and that had an impact to what was going on. I did reach out to Mr. Kane to try to get some feedback and to reinstate the proposal that was given. We initially asked them for, when this all started, a contribution of like $22,000 to have it going. Of course, that would have to be changed at this point because of fuel and because of price changing with our contract operator RTP there. But in short, the ridership is low. If you guys wanted to do something to try to boost that ridership, but I really don't see that happen unless we want to run the pilot. But I'm here, like I say, at what prompted it is, it's costing us to run a route that is low performing.
So I'm gonna pick up there, if I may. All right, so just to refresh people's memory, which I had to do myself too, is that Route 97 is a once a week route. It only runs on Thursdays. Runs in the morning, runs in the afternoon, goes from Columbia, from our headquarters to Batesburg, Leesville, does a loop in Batesburg, Leesville, and then comes back. When she says 20 people, I mean, we're talking about one or none per ride. I mean, it's practically non-existent ridership. And so it makes a lot of sense to say this is not something, you know, that merits. And I will also remind the board that we've had one other occasion where we piloted a once a week route, and that was over in Lexington when the BSS offices and the health department moved out to Highway 6. And we found that pilot experience, what we found there was it's really hard to build a ridership for a once a week route, even with the agencies trying to give appointments on the days that the bus came. It's just, that is a very difficult thing to do. But so, you know, it seems like on the face of it, this ought to be just an easy decision, but I didn't feel comfortable as chair of the service committee for us to make a recommendation on that without going back to talk to the folks in Batesburg, Leesville about what prompted the request for this route and, you know, what their perspective was on it. So Mr. Harris and I went down to meet with Stephen Kane, who's a town councilman in Batesburg, Leesville, and is also their advisory member on our common board. And we had what I consider a very fruitful conversation, because what we learned was that when we asked what the community hoped to gain by getting transit service, what they really need and wanted is a way for people to get around within the town, which with this route only does that one loop 1 day a week, once a day, 1 day a week. And to help them get around to just meet their daily needs. And then a second need was for people to have a reliable transportation source to jobs in the surrounding area, which are once a week route. Yeah, I mean, you can see the route as it's now designed does not meet either of those needs. And Mr. Kane was right there with us on that, you know. And so what we did was begin to think about how could the is there a different plan that would work for this community, and is there a way to fund a different plan? You know, but for right now, this is not it. And so we've set out on the process, and I want to make a motion to the board when I finally quit my explanation. But what we want to do is to find a better plan and see if we can find a workable plan that the board can approve. Now, my only question before I make the motion is, well, and Mr. Kane, they're in the budget process right now. So he and the council members he's talked to, they want to protect some funding for public transit in that budget. And so we want to work with them on how to, place hold some funding so that we can have a way to get started on something that actually meets the needs of the community. What I'm not sure about is whether we could just suspend the service on this route until we have a different plan, which doesn't, it seems to me if I make that a part of the motion, then we could not have to go through all of the discontinuing service process, because it would be an interim kind of way. Can somebody help me with this? Is that a way that we could do that? Is just to suspend the service so we don't keep paying to send the bus down there with nobody on it while we're trying to work out.
Ms. Bowers, will you
Is that,
chime in on that?
That's what I would recommend, is just suspend it for now. I
okay.
think that would be the best thing because the ridership is very low.
So I don't, legal counsel, I don't know if we need, but I don't think that would disrupt anything. It's certainly not going to disrupt anything in the community because people are not counting on the service. All right, so I think I'm ready to make a motion. Okay. All right, so
Madam Chair, I had my hand up, but I guess.
I'm sorry, yes. Would you like to speak before? And
Yes.
then Mr. Harris also has his hand up.
Yeah, before we get that motion, I'd like for Ms. Andrews to say the cost of us to run that bus.
So if you refer to page 56 of the packet,
Mm-hmm.
it costs us about $520 a day to run Route 97.
so that's 1 day a week.
1 day a week.
So for every day that it's in service, it costs about $500.
So I would think if we increase the numbers of days, that daily number would go down. So right now, because it is one, it's like when you buy a bundle, sometimes you buy more, you buy them for less. But if you buy that single, it's gonna cost a little more.
But my question is, so isn't costing Lexington County anything? Am I correct?
Yes, there's money in the budget in Batesburg, Leesville to contribute to that route. Is
But
that not?
I want,
Right now, they're not contributing anything. Is that what you're asking?
that's correct.
Okay, I thought they already had something in the budget that they were.
No, Batesburg.
I'd like to alert board members to something that our previous CEO did. It's a lot of routes out there that we got away from our intergovernmental agreement with our previous CEO saying, well, passengers just riding get us compensation for it. So we need to be careful on what we do now, because this money situation in Richland County really gonna get rough within the next 5 years. So I just want to alert everybody.
Yes, can we let Mr. Harris speak and then, yes, okay.
Yes, first I want to say Ms. Mook provided a great report, and Mr. Fergus, you are exactly correct in your assessment as well. At this time, I guess I wanted to, just from the planning perspective, if possible, could we suspend the service effective July 1, opposed to doing it immediately, just in good faith and making sure we get the word out to the public and just getting that second approval from Batesburg Leesville.
So that would be
We'd
2
be
more
good at
Thursdays.
that part of the motion.
Okay. And did you want
That's good.
Madam
Mhm.
Chair, in
Are you-
reference to
Sorry,
the,
Mr. Harris, were you finished?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, great, okay.
in reference to the cost, the factor of what went into the cost was the amount of deadhead miles, the 60 miles of deadhead for the fuel, how much, it's being reimbursed back to run the service. So that price that we've given you, that is for all 3 loops for the day, about what it would cost the Comet to run. So if you were to increase the frequency or increase the number of days to do it, that cost would be per day. So if you add another, say another Wednesday for the same amount, that would cost you an additional $516. And when we're talking about ridership, I know everybody was saying it's low, just so you have the indication, as of July 1st, 2020, there has been a total of 28 riders. 13 of those riders were travel training from Able. So when you're breaking all that down, we've only had around 15 riders in a year.
Okay. Now we're in.
Yes.
All right, so, my motion is that the, recommendation to the board is to refer to the service committee, the task of examining, alternatives for public transportation with proposed funding for in Batesburg, Leesville, to work with the service committee, examine this, come up with a plan to present to the board that would include funding. And that in the meanwhile, beginning July 1, that we suspend service on Route 97, and that the appropriate public notification and communication with Batesburg, Leesville be done.
Thank you. So everyone's heard the motion. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair,
Burgess?
on this referral to the service committee, my impression is that referral should come from Batesburg, Leesville. We should just get their presentation and rule on it, not create it for them. I don't understand why we creating
Well,
Yes.
what we are in doing is just having conversation with them, and I can't tell you at this point what kind of plan we'll come up with, but it's not gonna look like a bus with an unpaid deadhead cost going, I mean, it's gonna have to be a more creative system than that. But so, I'm certainly, I expect the citizens to work with us on what will work for them and how they see us being able to pay for that, what they're willing to do. Mr. Kane is very interested in seeing what kind of support from employers, what kind of support, from, looking at other as well as their budget. But I don't expect them to be able to come up with a plan for service because they don't know about transit systems. They don't know what will be workable to either. So I see us working hand in hand with the community, but my motion was intended to lay this in the lap of the service committee to do that interactive work.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
that's not the wording in our intergovernmental agreement. Our
Okay.
intergovernmental agreement say it has to be presented to the board.
That's what I'm doing. That's,
Right, well.
Yeah, but you're saying service committee, not you. You saying service committee. I'm a member of service committee.
I'm just be sure I'm being clear. I'm asking that the board refer this to the service committee as we do almost anything that takes a lot of work off scene to come up with something workable or not. I mean, we may say, we can't figure out any way to do this, but to bring whatever the fruit of that work is back to the board for any, with a recommendation.
Madam Chair,
Dr.
Robert
Morris?
Morris. Through you to Ms. Mood. Ms. Mood, could you make your motion in two parts? One, delaying the service or postpone the service as of July the 1st. And then the other piece you talk about, make another motion for that?
If it's better for us to deal with that one piece at a time, sure.
So we'll split.
So I'll withdraw that first motion and make a first motion that, we suspend service on Route 97 to Batesburg, Leesville, indefinitely, beginning July 1, with the appropriate public notice and communication with that community.
Okay, so, oh, and I'll second that. So we've heard the motion regarding the service suspension of Route 97. We've had pretty good discussion on this, so we can, move to a vote. Whenever you're ready.
You ready? Mr. Brennan, Vice Chair Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton, Representative Howard. Representative Howard. Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Chairwoman Tracio.
Yes.
Okay, so the second motion then would be to, that the board refer to the service committee the task of, exploring if there are other avenues of providing, transit service to Batesburg, Leesville, that the service committee work in collaboration with the community and, bring a recommendation back to the board on the outcome of that work.
I'll second that. And, we'll take a vote on this second motion regarding, tasking the service committee with finding another solution for that, for Batesburg, please vote.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, Vice Chair Burgess,
No.
Ms. Gleaton, Representative Howard. Representative Howard. Ms. Herbert,
No.
Mr. Lawson,
No.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
No.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and Chairperson Tracio.
Yes. So by my count, that vote failed. Okay.
All right, so may I ask a question? Because I need a little guidance for the service committee on this. I'm puzzled by the outcome of the vote because what my expectation was that what we would do is engage with the community on trying to come up with a solution and a funding plan. So if this vote says, no, don't talk to the community, I'm in an awkward position because we've got a community in our service area.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
after Ms.
Yes.
Mood, may I say something about that?
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
I'll wait till Ms. Mood finish.
Well, I was just saying, this is a community that falls within our service area. And to just have work that explores alternatives for a service that they see themselves needing. I don't know how much this vote ties our hands to.
Ms. Herbert's hand is raised.
Okay, Ms. Herbert, we haven't heard too much from you. Welcome and, please, you are recognized.
I'm sorry, I think Mr. Burgess was next, but I just had a quick comment that I think the question really is there a need for service, period? And I don't know if it's our burden to determine if there's a need for service, or is it for the community to say, this is what we need. So I think that the question that was previously posed assumed that there definitely was a need, definitely was a problem, so we needed a solution. I did not vote in favor of it because I don't know if there is a need for such a route.
And if I can just
All right,
drop in
Madam-
here, Ms. Herbert, what we definitely know is that there's not a need for the kind of route that we have right now. That's clear. But in terms of transportation needs in the community, we may be the solution, part of the solution to that, the comment may be, and we may not be there.
So,
But Madam Chair,
yes, Mr. Burgess.
the procedures just, if Batesburg Leesville wants a route, They do it and present it to the board approves it and refer it to service. We're going backwards. We don't originate in service committee. And they come with the checkbook, you know, covering the cost of that route that they're requesting.
Okay. Thank you for your input on that. Would it be appropriate at this time to just have the board task our executive director with reaching out to, like working with staff and reaching out to the community to determine if there is a need and a potential action to take? And do we need a motion to do that?
I don't believe. Chair, Madam Chair, Robert Morris.
Okay, Dr. Morris.
I like your suggestion, but if we could add another piece to it to see whether or not they will be willing to contribute financially to this route if we decide to do it.
Okay, so to explore the full range of engagement and options about that.
Yes.
Do we need to vote on that? Or can we just ask you to do this? Okay, so we are just going to officially ask our executive director, and hopefully he can bring back a report in at least a cycle or two.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
let me,
Mr.
let me
Burgess.
alert you one more time that we have areas in Richland County that we hadn't fulfilled from the penny yet. That's gonna raise their head if we are going around checking to see which area needs service. We could start in Richland County. Just an alert.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. So with no further action to take on 6C, we'll move to 6D. The Minnesota CAP revitalization process. I'm sure that will be a fun discussion. Ms. Vinery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've been meeting with a lot of the businesses in the community and the entertainment entities, as well as Experience Columbia SC, and that meeting went really, really well. They're excited and want to help us promote SodaCap to people who are visiting the area, not only the people after they get here, but the people like in Ohio and New York and Florida who are thinking about coming to Columbia, South Carolina, whether it's for a conference or another event, and really being proactive with that. So we're really excited about those conversations. The other thing is we do have some events which were in the plan that we're planning on doing with SodaCap, namely coming up. We have the orientation with Allen University, and also the Danae and Blanc, which is another community event that's coming up. And then the third thing would be the restaurant week with the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. And even before they've sold tickets, people are really excited about getting on SodaCap and seeing where it goes along the route. And the restaurants are actually excited that we're actually bringing them business. So we are in process right now. I'm working with planning, and I'll let Eric talk a little bit more to that, on making sure that the route works. Ms. Bowers and I will go out and ride it one more time to see what works. And I know that there was a tweak that was brought to our attention by Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Burgess to see if we can modify it slightly as it goes into West Columbia Casey. And we'll be looking at that as well. The details of who we've met with and who I've visited with are actually in the marketing report and where we are in that process. So one of the next things would be to get the maps established and make it its own brand, whereas it's more destination specific and not just look like a transit map, because the people who will ride SodaCap are not necessarily transit riders all the time. They're people, this may be their first experience riding the bus. So we need to make it as intuitive and as seamless as possible. and let people know this is where you can go and this is what you can do when you ride SoCal. I'll turn it over to Mr. Harris.
Yes, Pam is exactly correct. In front of planning perspective, we want to make sure that we get all the, I guess you can say, stakeholders in this case involved. And we've planned to do that with trying to incorporate them in our service planning meeting that we have recently decided to do. We went from every month to bi-monthly. And so getting them involved in that process, we can get real-time feedback and figure out ways that we can adjust the service as we go from a service change. We change our services a few times per year. We want to make sure we give them their opportunity to provide that feedback, and also considering bus stops as well. Anytime they see anything out there on the road, we want to create that open door policy and say, hey, just give us a call, let us know, send us an email. So we have put the appropriate contact information into their hands. And so going back to Pam, you know, just from the marketing standpoint, we just want to make them feel like they're involved in the process all the way through.
Thank you. I guess at this time, is there a motion regarding this item?
It was just,
Okay,
Yeah.
so just an update.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now I'll move us, and thank you for that update. I'm excited about future of the Soda Cup. We'll move into our motion period, number 7. Are there any further motions? Okay, hearing and seeing none. We'll move to item 8, our progress reports. The chair's report, this is probably just more from my position on Richland County, but we did vote last night at council regarding a system to record attendance on our boards and commissions. We're trying to make that make ourselves more transparent and accountable in the way that we name board members and keep track of where, you know, people's attendance. We don't want to name people to boards and then not have them attend the meetings. So that's going to be coming down soon as a feature, I guess, for Richland County. So that's my only update. Committee chairs, we've heard from Ms. Mood. Is there anything further from the service committee?
No, I think we covered everything in the.
Right. All right, thank you so much. 8B is the finance committee updates. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real briefly, as you know, in lieu of a regular finance committee meeting, we had a board meeting to consider and adopt the budget. So nothing new to report, but thank you all for being willing to meet that extra time this month, I guess, June to adopt the budget.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Burgess, for, oh, sorry, that's Dr. Morris.
Yes. Madam Chair, it was brought to the attention of the board that, or the finance committee, that we were awarded $3 million for the 2 buses. I'd like to know, you know, where those funds are as of this point. And maybe Mrs. Ramsden, if she is present, could let us know.
No, she's not present. She's.
Okay.
Dr. Morris, Ms. Ransom is out, but as far as the local, where those funds are, grant funds work in a reimbursable way. So we'll get those funds after we spend money out. So they've been awarded, but we won't see any of it until we start to spend money towards purchasing those buses.
Okay, you know, Mr. Wilson, the community person, came and talked about alternative to fuel. And we have some funds for a hydrogen bus and an electric bus. I think we need to move ahead and spend those funds so we can do some research in terms of what is the best system for the common.
So as far as. So.
Dr. Morris, this is Leroy. On the Lono project that we're working on, that's in the process now. We're basically at a point where we have to make sure that the project, manager, company that they're working with, we're at the point now, we're making sure that all the contracts are in place. But we're on target to make that, project happen as we get into next year. Once the contracts are all in place, we will start the process of identifying where the charging stations will be here, on this property. We'll start going through the 4 buses that has to be ordered. So that project is continuing and it's on target as far as our target date. So you know, if we need additional information in the coming months, we can gladly provide an update. But that project is going on currently and it's on schedule.
Mr. DeChamp, are you saying next year, 2023 is on schedule?
Yes, sir. When I say that, that includes ordering the buses and they have to be built, and with the manufacturing schedule, that could be a 12, 14, or 16 months process right now. But we can't place that order until we have everything in place. And that's why we have a company that has experience doing this, that are working with us, the manufacturers, whoever's going to be providing the power stations here and all of that. So all of those things are part of the project, but that's our timeline.
Okay, thank you. But could you give us a monthly report at the board meeting in terms of how we are progressing with that?
Sure can.
Thank you.
I'm sure everything's moving a little bit slower these days.
And that,
Mr. Lawson, did you want to speak?
I did. I had a question for Roz, or maybe it was Mr. DeChamps. Maybe you can answer this. That grant that we received for $3 million, does it cover the buses as well as the charging stations?
It's, well, I'll just speak for it and then I can let Rosalind go, especially with not having Michelle Ransom, our grant person here, it's basically an all-inclusive project. I'll say that. Now, if you need to see the breakout of all of that, I'm quite sure we can request that and get that, but it's like an all-inclusive project. It does include that.
Okay, and then last additional question, just a follow-up. Does that $3 million, will that cover the 4 buses that we're trying to order or that we're looking to order?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. That will bring us to our executive staff updates. HCA is our, Mr. Huggins.
Okay, at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, I was asked to give a more in-depth line of where we are with the intermodal completion. I broke it down into 10 steps, and I will go to the current step that we're in right now, which is step number 6. And I'm going to ask Mr. Simmons and Ms. Pearson and Ms. Andrews to help me present our current placeholder, step number 6, which is our program manager and pick future sites based on FTA and NEPA approvals, and work with the COG to administer the RFP. I'm sorry, Mr. Simmons is here to help us with the funding. We had a meeting with him and he has agreed to help us with the RFP funding to administer that procurement. So first I'm gonna ask Mr. Simmons to talk a little bit about that. Then I'm gonna ask Ms. Pearson from internal procurement to help to chime in too.
We've gone through the process of putting this project into our work program. That's a planning step that's administered and required by FTA to make sure that the project is recognized for federal funds. We're now going through the process of identifying the funding. We've identified CARES Act money that Central Midlands Council government had access to. We're actively pursuing that funding through a grant process, and once we receive that funding, while we waiting to receive that funding, we're going through the process of developing the RFP and working with the comment to put together the scope of work that will go into the RFP so that once the funding is confirmed, we can actively release it and move forward with hiring a consultant.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
this question is to Mr. Simmons.
Okay.
Is this RFP for someone to do land purchase or to build the facility? Which is this RFP for?
The RFP is to initiate the process to identify the site location and then pursue the active measures that it takes to acquire the land to lead to the purchase of the property, which then lead to actually coming up with funding to actually build the facility that you're looking for.
Mr. Fergus, it's for an overall project manager that would manage all of the future procurements, which would include acquisition and all of that. So it's for a firm that would serve as the project manager that would handle all those future procurements.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
my question is, did it take us 8 months to get to where we are?
I guess the question is, at what date did we originally initiate this?
That's correct.
And my memory is not that good. Can someone,
When I started the position on November 1st,
okay,
there were 6 steps prior. And we had to go through the studies and ensure FTA was going to approve the sites based on the lag of time. And we worked with the COG to ensure the politics of that was taken care of and not going back to step number 1. And that required some time. And then also on top of that, we had to identify, based on the infrastructure dollars that were out there, what would be the best grants for us to go after. And we identified two grants based on the size of our structure and also the contacts that we had formerly and current that would help us get those dollars. The RAISE grant was applied for, and also the community project funding request. Both of those grants were submitted on those due dates of May 22nd. And now we're in 30 days out, which is, I think the day is June the 22nd. Okay, so 30 days, and normally it takes 60 to 90 days, and we're hoping for 60 days of in the next 30 days we'll be accepting a $16.1 million grant from the project funding request. The RAISE grant, we will know that probably a little bit later. But to answer your question, does it take 8 months? There's been a lot of work done in the last eight months, sequential steps to ensure that we had a credible process, did not overstep any FTA rules and regulations that would derail this project. And also we are taking in contact with the Department of Revenue and making sure that we do not spend penny dollars the wrong kind of way and put us in a situation that will derail the project before the inception or before the start.
thank you. Thank you for
Madam
that.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
I keep hearing project, but have we identified a project enough to say a infrastructure grant request gonna be $68 million? Is that what you are saying?
I don't understand the question, sir.
You said a grant $68 million.
No, I did. I said $16.1 million was identified based on the project funding request. And that will be the first steps to acquire property. And then from there, we will go and work steadily with the COG and then start identifying other dollars to build the project.
All right, Madam Chair,
Acquiring the $16.1 million should get us into phase 1 and phase 2 of the FTA project, which is acquire and build an intermodal.
Madam Chair, this question is for Mr. Simmons.
Okay.
Did it take a major effort to move from top 4 to number 1 in the COG request for location?
I'm not sure if I understand your question, but I would say yes to what you're asking for. It takes a major effort to do anything with federal funds because you need to make sure that you're checking all the boxes and you're addressing all of their concerns and you're answering all of their questions before you move from step 1 to step 2. That will ensure that once you get through the process, you've done it the right way and that they are approving what you're doing and that you have no problems on the back end.
So if the project is in the top 4, it can't move to the top without some other legal procedure? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that, I'm sorry.
Did you want to speak to that?
Mr. Ferris, are you trying to ask, and I'm trying to hear what you're saying and respond. I think what you want to know, in order for us to have submitted for a grant, we had to identify locations. So I think we submitted our top 4 locations to get approval. And once we get that approval, we'll narrow that down to the actual location. Is that what you're inquiring about?
And if I could clarify that, I think the way Ms. Ransom submitted the grant, she did not specify a location so that we would not be tied down to where we could construct the facility. And I would suggest that if we're going to discuss details about sites and the location, it might be wise to do that in executive session.
That wasn't my question.
Okay, can you maybe, can you try again? with
My
that?
question was, if a site, I just heard something different, but if a site is in the top 4, did you have to do anything else? Because we were hearing that to move that request to number 1 was the effort, but with the COG. Can Mr. Simmons address that? So it's been no movement in the top 4 from years back. Is that correct?
So we did identify 4 sites. Well, we studied 22 sites.
That's
and then
correct.
4 rows to the top as kind of those that was being recommended for consideration.
Mhm.
So now, once you've identified those 4 sites, the next step is to identify which one of those sites is the one that you want to go with. Now, I'm not sure if that step was taken. That's what we're talking about right now, is to take the next step to identify which one of those 4 sites is going to best meet your needs towards the future transit network that you're proceeding with. So as we go through that process to identify those and study and analyze those top 4 sites, to identify the selected site, then you're going to have a project manager who's going to take you through the rest of the process to possibly acquiring the property for that site and then initiating the next steps to get that site built.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Madam Chair, through
Yes,
you
of course.
to Mr. Simmons. So, Mr. Simmons, we cannot move ahead or do anything until we hear from the grant?
Well, we're working on putting together the scope of work of what we want the grant to stand for and what we want to use the grant for. So we're working actively to get that in place. So that once we receive the funds, then we can proceed ahead with the RFP.
Now, who are we?
Central Maine is working with CMRTA, and as part of the process, we have to go through an environmental analysis called NEPA, which will be part of that active effort to make sure that we are dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for that one. Thank you so much. Okay, that moves us to item 8. I've messed up my paper. Mr. DeChance.
Okay, good afternoon again. You'll find my report on page 69 and 70, and just 2, 3 other things I'll mention. Right now, currently, we're working our way through the annual performance reviews for staff. So hopefully we'll have this wrapped up this Friday, and no later than next week, to be sure that all actions can be taken as we go into our fiscal year. Also, too, as normal, just a couple other things about staff. We had Ms. Andrews and Ms. Bowers. They attended a transit knowledge sharing retreat in Erie, Pennsylvania, the past week. So they were able to share their knowledge and gain other knowledge on other transit professionals. So we're looking forward to them as they share that experience with the rest of the staff. Also, too, we want to congratulate Pamela Bino-Reed. She just completed the Columbia Leadership Program, so she's now an official Columbia Leadership alumni. So congratulations on that, Pam. And also, we had Dr. Prince. She just attended her first task board retreat, I think in Anderson at the beginning of the month. So it's just to show you that our staff is constantly involved, and the knowledge that they not only carry, but also they bring back to the organization just only, it's a great asset for us, but it also to energize the rest of the staff. And we're just constantly every day trying to do the best that we can to service our community. And I think they represent that well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. That brings us to Ms. Andrews.
Well, I don't have as much to highlight as Mr. DeChamps, but he speaks for the entire team. But my report is here on page 71 as to what we do on a daily, monthly, and on the one-off. So if you guys have any additional requests to me or any information to me, that concludes my spiel.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Prince.
Okay, good afternoon. The report that I'll be presenting is found on pages 72 through pages 80 of the board packet. And one of the things I just want to share is that I won't go over my report in detail, but just want to highlight that we had a DBE participation meeting last Thursday in partnership with the Central Midlands Council of Governments. I thought the meeting was very productive, and I'd just like to thank Dr. Morris for being in attendance and bringing us with some greetings, and everyone else for their support of this activity. The purpose of the meeting was to meet FTA requirement regarding setting our DBE goal for the next 3 fiscal years. And as I mentioned in previous board meetings, our goal will expire on September 30th. And we have until August 1st to get our new goal in place into FTA. The meeting basically consisted of, first of all, I just want to share, we want to make sure we were utilizing the DBE to assist us. So PJ Noble and Associates served as the facilitator of the meeting. And Ms. Noble is a DBE firm. So we want to make sure we were utilizing DBEs. And we also shared information on upcoming contracting opportunities. We talked about information from the comment. And we also used it as an opportunity to share with the firms to get ready. As opportunities become available, we want them to go ahead and consider being DBE certified. So once we have projects available, they wouldn't have to stand in line at that point to wait to be certified. They will already be certified and we could utilize them. We also had our general manager with RATP Deb talked about contracting opportunities with their agency. And also Mr. Simmons was in attendance and he talked about contracting opportunities and more about the DBE program at the Central Midlands Council of Governments. And we also had SCDOT in attendance, and their certification staff, and they were able to share information on how to become certified. One thing is that Mr. Huggins and I shared with them that we are planning to schedule, set aside Thursdays, starting at 10 o'clock to meet with firms or to hear more about that company and what type of services that they have available that could assist the company in the future. Also on page 74 through 77 is just information again about where we are with our DBE goal, and I will continue to track this. There's information also regarding RATP DAP's goal and where they are. And I know that's will be the next item we will be discussing. But from a cumulative standpoint, from the start of the contract, which started July 1st, 2020, up through April 30th, RATP DAP has achieved the goal of 22.6%. And currently in their contract is 20.06%. I also have information in the packet that talks about where they are on a fiscal year basis. And basically this information is just so we'll be able to see where they are. And as of April 30th, they were at 17.7%, but this is just on a fiscal year, and this is not the goal. But this kind of like shows up, helps us to track where they are during a given point time in the year. And the last item that I have included is information in terms of the contract. What does the contract say about the DBE requirement for RATP DAP? And there's information on page, I think it's page 78 to page 80. And basically it states on the first page of 78, in the first paragraph, it says a separate contract goal of 20% has been established for this contract. And if you go to page 78, page 79, it lists the DBEs that were committed at the time of the contract award. And it shows that the goal of the percentage that we went with was 20.06%. And then on page 80 of the document of the contract, it states that the proposal, which is RATP DAP, is committed to a minimum of 20% DBE utilization on this contract. So since it refers to the contract, when we track the goal, and what I have to state in the past is we do it on a cumulative basis because we track it from the beginning of the contract until the end of the contract. And since the contract is still ongoing, we continue to track it on a ongoing basis. Madam Chair, this ends my report.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Morris.
I appreciate the report coming from Dr. Prince, but I thought years ago when we had another company, we learned from that. And I noticed that for some reason I was dependent on legal to make sure we don't make the same error that we made before. The DBE does not be achieved until the end of the contract. And before, we know that the last company left us not achieving the goal. And we are in the same boat again. Hopefully, RAPDAP wouldn't do this to us, but according to the contract, they can, because we cannot hold them accountable for the fiscal year. We have to hold them accountable for the contractual year. And I think that in the future, we need to make sure we don't let this happen again. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Burgess,
Okay, Mr. Burgess.
on that DBE report, every requirement we have in that contract is the same way. The on-time performance doesn't state anything either. So I don't know how, maybe legal needs to look at that. Every goal that we have that we monitor is stated the same way.
Okay, thank you. We will take that point. I believe that brings us to Ms. Bina Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report is found on pages 81 to 84. And I've highlighted some things of note, and I forgot to highlight one very important under events, and that was the Lower Richland Community Town Hall event that we conducted with DISA. As you all remember, Ms. Diana Sumter came and presented before the board to let us know about the work that we're doing down there, actually listening to the community, talking about our services. Mr. Harris did a great presentation. Mr. Huggins was in attendance and brought remarks. And Lower Richland is not by any means the only town hall that we will hold. We do have plans to hold other town halls, especially throughout Richland counties, to make sure that we're providing the services that are needed in the areas that need it most. So stay tuned for us scheduling those. We're trying to be careful around the summertime because people are away on vacation. And it's difficult to get turnout, but we did have about 25 people at the Lower Richland event, which really was good considering it was coming off of a holiday weekend. We're continuing with our partnership with DPAC and their Diabetes Awareness and Prevention Initiative. We talked about the revamp and relaunch of Soda Cap Connector. And I would like for everyone to know that we're about to launch a People of the Comet campaign, where we will highlight not only our riders, the people who were in the videos and commercials with excerpts from the things that they said about the Comet, but also staff. And these will be like billboards on the shelters, if you will. And the reason that we're doing that is it costs us nothing. And it's additional advertising, and it humanizes our brand and what we do. It shows the community, these are the people who we serve, and these are the people who are working to provide excellent transportation here in the Midlands. And then the last thing that we're working on is planning and development of a new route guide booklet, where we're going to take the individual route schedules and put them into one cohesive booklet, so that if bus 701 was on Route 6 today and it's on Route 11 tomorrow, at least you know you have a schedule for that route on that bus. And it's not, you know, the schedules make sense. The drivers know not only the route that they're driving, but also they can point a passenger to another route that they may be interested in. That concludes my report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any board motions to review, and we don't have anything for executive session. So that will bring us to item 10. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you. I'll second that. Can we have the roll? Or I guess we can go by acclamation. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for a really productive meeting. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Let's see you around soon. All right.